Good evening, everyone. I'm Scott Lambert, Chairman, and I would like to call to order the March 9th, 2022 East Whiteland Township Board of Supervisors meeting. Please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
It's the best I can do.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, with justice and justice for all. Thank you. I know we're having some technical difficulties, but I'd like to introduce our attendees. At the main table, there is Vice Chairman Rich Orlow, Solicitor, I believe Bernadette Kearney is there, Peter Fixler, and John Nagel. Some decorum points. The meeting is being recorded, and the residents will have an opportunity to comment after each agenda item is discussed by staff and the board, and any non-agenda items can be brought up during the public meeting this evening. I would like to start tonight with a acceptance of retirement notice from our township solicitor, Joe McGrory. Joe has been serving as our solicitor from 2016 until currently. He has 34 years of experience handling zoning, subdivision, land development, and municipal law matters. And he has served not only this township, many other ones. For over 6 years, he's given our board, our staff, and our residents and developers a master class in zoning, land use, and municipal law, and most importantly, vision and leadership. He's represented many townships in the past. And going forward, Joe will be retiring on April 1st, but will be becoming second chair to Bernadette Kearney, and he will be staying on and leading the final completion of 3 major projects that he's been working on for quite some time in the township. John, do you have any other comments you would like to make about Joe and Rich and Peter?
Thanking Joe for his service in time, and probably service in time, probably on the job. We just add what Gary said. From what I can make a return from the firm what I do at over 2,000 municipal meetings, we're starting here in the course of 34 years in business. It's quite an accomplishment. Unfortunately, Joe,
I can't hear you.
We can share this copy of this. Need a whole thing to celebrate.
He needs to bring the mic closer. John, could you bring the mic a little closer? As you guys talk, you might have to literally talk into that so they can't hear.
You can't hear anything at all, John.
Can you hear it? Go ahead, John.
I'll do my best. Joe has been named to the Pennsylvania Super Lawyers list for the past 10 years. Not only Joe is a super lawyer, he's a solicitor. On the personal side, Joe's a graduate of Delaware Law School. He also received an undergraduate degree from Delaware University. Joe was told a story about going over while he was there to a Pennsylvania football hall of famer having a home. So, of course, as I mentioned about this number of meetings, I also want to congratulate Joe on his retirement. It's been a privilege and a pleasure working with Joe. Thank you.
Donna, just so you know, I cannot hear what anyone is saying.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Well, then I'll just run the meeting.
Are you able to move the laptop? One plug it, move it, and whoever's talking?
We could probably do that. What I think we're gonna try to do, everyone, so everybody can hear, is I'm gonna move around with the laptop and see if that works. I mean, that's the best that we can do right now because we're having some difficulty.
Let me ask you this, Joe McGrory, can you hear John and Peter and Rich? Or is it just my audio?
I can hear Scott and Donna, but nobody else.
Okay, well, then I'm gonna walk around with my laptop. I'm gonna have to do that. Should have worn my Fitbit tonight, but I forgot it at home. So, okay, as you move on to the next item, I'll just pick up and walk around. We'll try that and see if that works.
Okay.
I think so.
At this point in time, I'm moving to item number D on the agenda, board briefings. We would like to respond to this horrendous aggression in Ukraine and offer a moment of silence for the lives lost, the families disrupted, and all of the suffering that has occurred, and hope for peace. And we have a moment of silence. Thank you. Next on the agenda is adopting a public meeting rules. While this is not a resolution, if we are putting forth new meeting rules, and I believe that we are going to just do a soft vote for everyone on the board to agree to these new rules. So if I can have a motion. Rich?
Oh,
I'll make a motion to,
I don't know if this is gonna work.
public meeting rules.
Do I have a second?
I will second that motion.
Can you hear them?
I do
Yes, I
have,
can.
before we vote, I do have a question. I am surprised that, number one, each speaker must be a resident or taxpayer of East Whiteland Township. I'm surprised that's legal. I know this has been reviewed, but what happens if one of our firefighters or one of our policemen want to say something and they are not a resident? And I know not all of them are. That's just an example. I know it'll be exercised reasonably, so I don't know that we'll require identification before somebody speaks, but that's my question.
Bernadette, do you want to say anything?
Yes, normally,
Sorry, that was me.
we do see those types of resolutions or motions to authorize for public rules. We do normally see that, but it's also taken that if somebody like a firefighter or somebody else outside the township has a legitimate concern, that the chair would recognize that person. This is more along the lines of, you sometimes see in different townships, somebody coming from somewhere else in the county to raise an issue that really has nothing to do with East Whiteland, but they want to go around to raise issues at different places. So yes, it's exercised with discretion, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Can you guys hear that?
Yep, I heard that. So do I have a second, Peter?
I will second that.
All in favor, board?
Aye.
Aye. The soft meeting rule agreement is approved.
No, not really. I think we can just talk into it.
Next we've got an announcement in terms of, I guess, John Nagel, if you want to or Zach would add any comments, but we are having a workshop session with the Board of Supervisors on March 16th to discuss the zoning consideration for the Route 30 corridor. While we had the large Route 30 corridor meetings back in 2018, we want to revisit some of those changes that have occurred in the public eye and what is happening in and along the corridor. So we just want to announce that we're going to be having that workshop.
Scott, that's basically a simple message. Zach is stepped away, but we've confirmed that the workshop session will be conducted a week from tonight at 7 p.m. March 16th to discuss the considerations of the Route 30 corridor.
Right. Correct. Next on the item is 2F. If you want to, John, give us a brief overview here.
Yes, thanks, Scott. Each meeting, we've updated the board and the public on the process for the sewer system sale. Currently, we're in the public hearing process. There's a public input hearing before Judge Marta Gould. It's tentatively scheduled for Tuesday, March 22nd. The fallback date for that is actually the night before, the day before, Monday, March 21st. Separately, there's an evidentiary hearing also before Judge Gould, and that's to be held on Thursday, March 31st and Friday, April 1st. Those will be virtual, and so the instructions to virtually attend, if anyone is interested in attending the hearings, will be provided on the township website at some point in the near future.
Okay, thank you.
Question, if someone cannot personally be there or virtually due to a conflict, do they accept written comments at the PUC on this kind of thing?
I can check that, but I'm fairly sure a lot of our testimony has already been submitted in advance and screened, and so any feedback that we get, we respond to in the same way.
Okay, moving on to 2G. John, again, if you can give us a campus master plan timeline, keep the residents in the know.
Yes, thank you, Scott. As we go through the rest of this year and leading up to sometime at the end of the year, we're working towards getting approval from the board on moving forward on the campus master plan and the new police station. So back in January, and this is all going to be on the website, so I'm not going to get too much into this at the meeting this evening. So I would check with the website under the administration section. But back in January of last year, the board engaged Arrow and Bernardin and Land Concepts to begin the design work and other necessary work to get this project to land development. We're fairly along the way with all of those design plans. And so sometime later this year, the project will be going before the Planning Commission. Then in April, there are concept sketch plans that were provided on the campus master plan and the new police station. Those will also be added to the website after this meeting. Back in August, another step was to present a design build model and a cost estimate range for the new police station. In January of this year, the campus master plan and the schedule for the new police station project were agreed to and presented and agreed to. And then at the same meeting, the board approved the pre-construction service agreement with Korsky Engineering to begin basically the construction management pre-construction services. So that's really an update on the campus master plan and the plan for the new police station project. There'll be more to come throughout the year, but all this information you can follow on the website.
These items that are going to be added to the website after tonight, we've already seen all of them?
Yes. And actually, we'll also be, I think Bob Floyd may be on the call. We're actually putting some of these sketches on poster board, and they'll be on display physically in the building and also obviously on the website.
Okay. That's from the public.
I'll tell you in a minute. Any comments?
Second.
Give me a minute. I'm gonna let Rich in. No, I do not see any public comment.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, we will turn the hearing over to Bernadette Kearney regarding public hearings.
Good evening. I'm Bernadette Kearney, the solicitor for the township, and we're going to open the conditional use hearing for the school district at this time. So this is a public hearing, and I want to make sure, because we couldn't see on the board, the court reporter is present, correct, Zach? Correct, okay. And I'm going to mark a series of exhibits and explain what the relief that is being requested is. I do see the school district is in the audience. Andy Freemuth is the attorney who had provided the continuance letter request. He is not present, but I have given him a copy of all the exhibits. So notice is hereby given that on March 9th, 2022 at 7 p.m. at the East Whiteland Township Municipal Building, located at 209 Conestoga Road, Fraser, PA, the Board of Supervisors of East Whiteland Township shall hold a public hearing on and may take action to vote upon the conditional use application of Great Valley School District. The application is requesting conditional use approval in accordance with section 200-19 and table 200 attachment 1 of the East Whiteland Township zoning ordinance, which permits by conditional use public or private, not-for-profit, open space or recreation purposes. The applicant is proposing a multi-purpose field, asphalt trail, garden fence, and gates on the property, which is located at 348 Sweetsburg Road, UPI 42-4-84, within the R1 low-density residential zoning district. And the exhibits that I'm going to mark are as follows. T1 will be the application for conditional use approval, dated February 7th, 2022. T2, the proposed plan, prepared by Christopher W. Jensen, PE. T3, the aerial image, including adjacent properties. T4, the letter to the Arrow Consulting, Inc., dated February 14, 2022. T6, the letter to the Daily Local News requesting the publication of the hearing. T7 is the letter to Attorney Andy Freemuth indicating that the hearing will be held tonight and providing the legal notice. T8 is the new legal notices appearing February 23rd and March 2nd, and T9 is the affidavit of publication from the newspaper. T10 is the affidavit of posting with the posting photos. T11 is the email from Zach Barner dated February 15, 2022 with the neighbor list and aerial view of the neighbors within 500 feet who were to be notified. And T12 is a letter from Andy Freemuth, the attorney for the school district, requesting its continuance to April 5th, 2022 at 7 p.m. I'm going to mark applicant A1 as the certification from the school district of the mailing to the neighbors of the hearing this evening. And just to make sure, and Donna, I'm not sure if you can tell me, is there anyone on the Zoom who is here for the hearing. I just see a couple.
It's okay. It doesn't look like it, no.
Okay. Those are the exhibits that I have, and I will also okay. Will also provide to the applicant's attorney. One of the things that the township is looking for, and I've indicated to applicant's attorney, is a plan showing the trees to be removed to install the proposed uses that we just spoke about. If that could be an exhibit at the next hearing on, I see the engineer nodding yes in the background. So at this point, I would ask, unless the Board of Supervisors has any comments or questions, before I ask for a motion for continuance to a date certain of April 5th at 7 p.m.
April 5th.
April 5th at 7 p.m.
Bernadette, I have one question. I understand from Peter that upon his discussion with the resident or two in that area, that they had not known about this conditional use hearing. And I just want to, Peter, I mean, you can step in. I just want to bring that forward, what you encountered and what you found out.
I spoke to the other residents and they were well aware.
I'm sorry, this is the court reporter. I cannot hear what's being said.
You might want to get a little closer.
What I was saying,
Can you hear now? She can't hear. Do you want to come over here? Do you mind coming over here? I'm sorry. Hold on, Elaine.
Yeah.
Sorry, everybody. I mean, we're doing the best we can.
Just to reiterate, Elaine, I did speak with some other residents and they were aware. It just was a one-off anomaly that that person may not have been aware.
Okay.
I don't see any questions. Okay, go ahead.
It does appear that we do have a question from the audience. Or, I know, we may have to take the laptop to you, sir.
Yeah, a question about one of the exhibits.
And I'm sorry, your name?
Yeah, my name is Gad.
Can't hear him.
Yeah, I'm thinking you're gonna have to let me turn this.
Yeah.
Yes, my name is Gad Hazoum. I'm a neighbor adjacent to the property being discussed here. And I had a question about one of your exhibits. I never received a letter. I would like to know if our name is on that list. And I'm definitely within 500 feet of the property. I'm adjacent, yep.
I'm gonna ask Zach Garner, and I'm also checking Exhibit A1, which is the list. If you could see if your name's on there, sir.
Yep, it is.
Okay, yes.
However, I never received a letter.
You didn't receive a letter?
No, I did not.
Okay. We'll ask that the school district make sure that the letter has been sent to all the, apologize, that the letter has been sent to all the neighbors. And if you've received any letters back addressing to the school district, please make sure to send them again for the April 5th, 2022 hearing. And I see another hand. I'm sorry, sir, you're gonna have to come up.
Elaine, are you getting this?
Yes, I am. Could I have the spelling of the gentleman that was just speaking, please?
Yes, it's Gad, G-A-D, Hazim, H-A-Z-U-M.
Thank you.
My name is Sajid Jacob. I'm also a neighbor, close to Gad as well. We did receive the letter, but we have not seen any of the plans. Are you able to send the topographical plans of the views, the trees that are going to be removed, any of that, so we can review it?
And I'm sorry, sir, can you show me here on the list?
Jacob Sajid.
Could you spell your name, please?
Okay.
It is Jacob, last name, and Saji, S-A-J-I.
Thank you.
That'd be great. That's all.
And Zach may be able to address this, and please let us know if you can't hear him, because he's also on another laptop.
So we have someone else may need to turn their volume off. We do have the plans, the current conditional use plan posted to the website. There's a page called Subdivision and Land Development Plans. And under the 2022 page on that, there's a conditional use with a folder with materials, and we'll update that as we get additional materials back from the school district prior to the hearing.
I did take a look at it, and I cannot see the latest plan.
Can't hear him. Can't hear him.
She can't hear it. Yeah, you need to speak into this. Please. Speak into that.
Because this is a legal proceeding, and the recorder has to record each comment, we have to go one at a time.
I still cannot hear him. I don't know what he said.
Sorry for these technical difficulties.
Turn this off.
I tried to join Zoom as well.
Paul, I apologize.
In response to the comment, I did take a look at the website and have not seen the latest plans that show our property and how the adjacent property will be used, where exactly the trail will be going, what trees will be removed. I mean, our concern is primarily noise, lighting, and safety. We've been there for like 16 to 20 years. It's a very private, quiet neighborhood. So we certainly, it's a great thing that's happening, but we're also interested in knowing what the plans are.
Yes.
Thank you.
So are you able to hear anything now? Elaine, can you nod if you can hear me?
I think you have to. Good.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is, I believe all that we have received so far is sort of a black and white drawing. When we receive additional information with existing vegetation and some of the other contextual items, we will upload those to the township website. So it sounds like you were able to locate what we posted, what we received so far, but there'll be more stuff forthcoming.
Question on the method of mailing the notices, are they required to go?
Can't hear you. Can't hear you, Mr. Orlo.
Try again.
It's me.
You see your lips moving.
Question on the housekeeping of mailing notices. Are they required to be sent regular and certified?
I believe the requirement is first class mail or hand delivered 10 days in advance per the application.
Get back to me.
Back to you.
And Mr. Hazim and Mr. Jacob, we suggest that Hazem? Oh, I apologize. We suggest that you come back to the next hearing. The attorney for the school district has asked for a continuance, so the substantive portion of this case will be heard on April 5th.
Likewise, exhibit 3 you mentioned.
Yes.
Is that something that would be shared?
And who
P3
is
was,
this speaking? I'm sorry. Who is the gentleman speaking right now?
It's Gad Hazem again. I was asking about Exhibit T3.
and Zach, I believe that had come in with the application, so would have been, it should have been, I believe, on the website. It was the aerial image.
Yeah, the aerial image actually that I provided to the board as part of their packet was just something that I prepared to outline the property line. That was not a submitted document, but we can certainly update that on the website.
You could put that on the
Absolutely,
website?
Yep.
So if there are no, okay, if there are no other questions or comments from the board, and again, we have asked the school district to provide a plan showing the trees on that property, what's going to happen with them before the next hearing. Hopefully we'll have that and we'll be able to put it on the website. If there are no further questions or comments, I would ask that we close this public hearing and continue it on the record to April 5th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Can I get a motion?
Motion made to, continue the hearing, close the hearing and continue it to April 5th.
I'll make a second. Move that here.
All in favor?
Uh,
Aye.
Okay, so at this time, the public hearing is closed and we're going to go back to the public meeting. But again, you should both come out on April 5th. I will say that later on this agenda, we are talking with the school district about the property that they currently own, not the property that's under agreement that has the conditional use. So if you want to stay for that, you're more than welcome.
To those gentlemen, I'd like to point out there are some issues related to trees that will be discussed shortly that may have an impact on your property as well. So you may want to stay.
Could you both hear that? You may want to stay for the next. Yep. Okay. Yes.
Thank you.
Sit down.
Okay. I'll ask Donna if there are any public comments at this point coming in.
Let's see. No, there are not. There are not.
Okay, moving on then to 4A. Or we will be looking to ratify a proposal from the Delta Development Corporation for assistance administratively to help with a grant raise program, which I would call sometimes the Biden infrastructure project, in which the township is looking for a grant from the federal government to the tune of $25 million to improve portions of the Route 30 corridor. And this is a proposal which we need to ratify for the contract with Delta Development to help us through that process. Any questions, comments? Okay, seeing none. Rich, could you make a motion?
I'll make a motion to ratify this Delta Development.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We are on to, John Nagel, if you can give us an overview regarding the HVAC improvements to the admin building.
You want to take this? Yeah. I think you do. That's why.
Okay, well then
You might
let's
just
do
sit
it here.
I'll sit here.
Yeah. No, I'll- right. Scott, I think we have Jerry Gorski attending virtually, and with all the technology issues that we have this evening, I would just ask Jerry to introduce the subject and give his presentation. We have a bit of a slideshow, brief slideshow for Jerry to present. So I can't tell if Jerry's on at this point. If he is, we can recognize him and turn it over to him. If
Good
not,
evening. I am here in Collegeville, but virtually with you in East Whiteland. And what we have some information that was put together by an engineering firm back mid-year 2001. And they did a survey of the existing HVAC equipment in the admin building. So we have a building that's 13,000 square feet. The heat is supplied by two 20-year-old oil-fired boilers. And there's a 1,000-gallon outdoor oil tank that provides the fuel to those boilers. Then we have the main system in the building consists of 6 carrier split systems that are 15 years old, and they have a 15-year typical life. So we're at the end of their expected use. We know from both the prior report and talking with staff that the temperature variance within the building, the way it's zoned, is not ideal. And since that 15-year-old HVAC system was installed, 5 supplemental air conditioners with ductless systems have been added to improve the cooling within the building. And McHugh Engineering, who did that study back mid-year last year, had 2 approaches that they recommended. The first approach would be to simply replace the HVAC equipment in kind. They suggested replacing the 6 carrier systems and the 5 supplemental ductless systems and leaving the boilers for the heat. Their second approach was to install new, more efficient systems using technology called variable refrigerant flow. And that is, there's a number of manufacturers, Mitsubishi probably being the most recognized name in variable refrigerant flow. But instead of forcing a lot of air through ductwork, we would move refrigerant, either warm or cool refrigerant, depending on the season, through piping within the building. Then late in 2021, a company called S.J. Thomas prepared a quotation for option 1, which would be to replace the HVAC equipment in kind, including some new electrical work to that equipment. Their firm fixed price was $808,886. And the procurement platform was a Keystone Purchasing Network. We look at this building and we know that it's intended to bring that building into the master campus plan, and some level of renovations will be happening in the future. And we think that to simply replace in kind doesn't solve it doesn't solve the comfort issues, it doesn't solve efficiency issues, and it keeps a system in that building that's going to be difficult to renovate around. So we look at option 2, and we want to point out some advantages. Using the refrigerant and the phase change of the refrigerant for heat and cooling uses no oil or gas. This system it's called variable refrigerant flow because it uses variable speed motors, so that it's never working at full capacity except if it's really at basically 0 or over 100 degrees. So there's less wear and tear on the equipment. A standard HVAC system is either on or off. It's always running at its peak when it's on. The variable refrigerant flow uses very little duct work for moving the hot or warm. It's moving the refrigerant. There is duct work for fresh air. It's much easier to zone, so we can provide more thermostats and have thermostats run the equipment in a particular area if it needs heat or cooling. And then we can integrate all the controls together so that they can be done even remotely, but certainly with a computer on site, where people wouldn't have to fuss with the thermostats. Most importantly, it would be easier to move what we call cassettes, the piece that delivers the warm or cold air, and moving refrigerant piping and cassettes is easier during renovation than moving ductwork and major interior equipment. Another concern with the old way is the fresh air supply. So right now we have 6 different systems that are supplying fresh air without any integration between any of those pieces of equipment. If a new system's put in, we can plan the fresh air supply and cover the entire building with fresh air, and not just when any of those 6 individual units is on. And we're going to improve the efficiency by the ratings by at least 40%. The efficiency ratings are 40% higher with the variable refrigerant volume equipment. So any questions on what you have and what the approaches are?
Jerry, this is Scott. I've got 3 questions for you.
Go ahead.
What would be the life of this particular system? Number 2 is, what impact would this HVAC system have on the prevention of transmission of COVID-19? And does it meet the state guidelines?
So first, the life, because it's relatively new technology, it's at least 15 years. It's gonna last, in our opinion, longer than the typical equipment because it's not ever running at full tilt. We're never running those motors at their high end. But when we get to selecting equipment, if we choose option 2, we can get you some more information on the warranty is going to be longer with option 2 than option 1, and then that's going to give us some guidelines on what we predicted. But if we say a standard system is expected useful life of 15 years, the variable refrigerant flow is going to be longer than that, just because the motors don't work that hard. As far as the fresh air, so that's what we all learned about in the last 2 years is, how do we change air out of a building, right? How do we exhaust air out, and how do we bring fresh air in? And right now, so I said the current system brings a percentage of fresh air, let's just say 10%, when the system's on. We don't really have a fresh air system for a building in the older approach. if we go to option 2, we'll be able to plan the fresh air out for the building and plan our air changes and be able to report how often we're changing the air out. And obviously we can filter, but the interesting thing is we're not moving air from one space to the other like we do with the old, where we're blowing air through ductwork. We're forcing air from one room to the next room to the next room. And in option 2, with a variable refrigerant flow, we're only bringing fresh air in. So we're not pushing the conditioned air from one zone to the next. Does that make sense?
Sure. Does that option 2 meet the state criteria for COVID-19 guidelines?
Yeah, so ASHRAE came out, the overall organization that provides standards for the heating and air conditioning industry, came out and said that basically any system that provides at least 10% fresh air is going to meet those guidelines. So yes, the answer would be yes.
Thank you.
I have a couple. How was McHugh chosen to perform the analysis? Was a request for proposal put out to other companies, or this was a fairly well-known company that was just chosen by itself?
Rich, I can answer that. I'm pretty sure that McHugh was the one that did the study originally a few years ago, and then we brought him back in to update the study. So it's I guess a prior vendor that we've used, but also the fact that this is a professional services, so we don't necessarily have to bid it. We just have to use a qualified or a vendor, professional vendor, like an engineering firm, to look at the system.
John, can I add to that?
Absolutely.
So McHugh is the mechanical engineer that Bernardin has used on the other buildings, and that we all intend to use on the new police building. So we would intend to consult with them as we go through their option 2 and keep them involved. I think they did a good job on their overall study and the way that they laid the options out for consideration.
So McHugh would be preparing the MEP, the M, the mechanical plans for the police station?
Correct. They've been in our meetings already. We're still working on the building envelope and the structure on the police station, but they have the overall plan and they know what we're doing as far as insulation values on the building envelope on the police station. So, just because they've already been there, they're involved, they know the other buildings, I think it would make sense that we continue to consult with them as we pursue one of these 2 options.
In deciding what option to choose, the ultimate contractor then would be put out to bid instead of handpicking one contractor?
Well, so one of the things that we would want to think about, the current proposal that was delivered in December, of 2021, was through a cooperative purchasing program called the Keystone Purchasing Network. We looked at those numbers and compared it to, because we already did one budget for renovations on the admin building based on some very preliminary conceptual plans that Bernardin put together. But looking at that, we know that the Sourcewell program that we're part of, that Gorski Engineering's part of, would deliver option 1 at a significantly lower price than the Keystone. For us to give the township a hard number on option 2, we need to design that. We need to come up with all the equipment. We need to spec out each condensing unit, the cassettes, the fresh air system, the electrical work to power all that. But I would say the cooperative purchasing program is going to put the township in a better place to get this equipment replaced before any of it would fail than if you use the traditional competitive bidding model, which is going to require months of engineering before anything can be procured. And then the bidding process, which is over a month these days, contract award, and then submittals of all because the successful bidder has 3 options on all their equipment. They have to select their equipment, put their submittal package together. The mechanical engineer has to approve all that. You're in today's world, you're probably 8 months before anything's 6 to 8 months before anything's ordered, let alone delivered. So I think that a decision would be which option do you want to go with, and then the procurement methodology. What does the township want to? What procurement method does the township want to use?
Are we being asked for an approval tonight? This is the first.
No, let me just jump in here. Jerry did an excellent job giving an overview, but if I'm not mistaken, Jerry's recommending that we get approval from the board to do a design to get the final pricing under option 2.
Correct.
Jerry, am I correct?
Well, we're recommending option 2. That's the first decision. And then we would be willing to get the design done and prepare for later approval by the board, if they choose to go that way, a proposal through the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Program. We believe that we can provide the better option at a price very similar to what option 1 was priced out in December. We need to design it. So all we're looking for is direction. Is it option 2? And is the board comfortable with us working with McHugh, putting the design together so that we can come back with firm numbers using Sourcewell?
My feeling would be to go with the option 2. I'll also add that as I hear this and understand this, that this expenditure could most likely fall underneath the American Rescue Plan grant that we received. So funding could come from that source as well. But it seems as though that option 2 would provide the healthier solution for our employees going forward.
I would just add, if it wasn't emphasized earlier, that comparing option 1 and 2, it's estimated to save at least $300,000 if we were to do the in-kind model. What the in-kind model also causes us risk in is that when we go to renovate the building, the way that the current system is installed is going to make it extremely difficult, and extensive adjustments are going to have to be made to the design and the construction to make the in-kind system fit. The last thing I'll mention is that this is a more than 60-year-old building. It's been there's been Band-Aids put on the HVAC system here for a number of years, and we're now at the end of the current system's useful life. So that kind of summarizes it, at least from my perspective.
The option 2 system could be installed without ripping apart the entire building and having to renovate it on day 1.
Correct.
Can't hear anybody.
I would concur with
Okay, so we're in agreement to go with option 3 if I'm able to pick up everything. John, could you comment on that? Because I can hear you.
You are correct, Scott.
Okay. Jerry, thanks for your time.
You bet. Thank you.
There's no. Well, I think we all know it. They're not confused up there, so let's just let it ride out.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, now we move on to Steve Brown, if you can give us this overview here on the stormwater management projects.
He's on his way over.
In Westchester?
Yeah, from across the hall. Hold on. You want to sit here?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. As the board is aware, the township experiences a number of flooding issues due to stormwater after heavy rain events. Hurricane Ida, or the remnants of Hurricane Ida from last September, really brought that issue to the forefront as we had flooding. Of course, it was a crazy storm, but we had serious flooding all over the township, and a lot of property owners reached out to us that typically don't reach out to us. So in the budget process, we asked the board to set aside more money to do studies of some of our stormwater problems to see if we couldn't get involved and address them. And so what I'm discussing with the board this evening are various properties that John Neal and Daryl Becker and I am recommending to the board that they considered for going ahead with proposals, authorizing Arrow for proposals. Excuse me. So first, what we did is we identified about 25 properties that flood. That's not to say there aren't more. There very well could be more. These are ones I'm aware of. John Neal has a lot of experience and has probably more aware of the flooding issues than I am. So after we identified the 25, we tried to review, what types of damage and what was the flooding. Is it a street that's just flooding and dissipates in a short period of time? Is it someone's property? Is it someone's building? We try to categorize it. Is it township infrastructure? What's going on? How serious is it, and what's the impact? And so after doing that, what we considered to be the highest priority properties that we study were residential buildings that either flooded or were at serious risk. We believe that it was important that township infrastructure, if it was damaged and or threatened in storms, township streets that had major flooding that may impact emergency services. We took a look at that and thought they were high priority, and also where we believed our intervention efforts could make a difference. Some of the stormwater problems, while serious, are of such a magnitude, I'm frankly not sure what we could do to address them. So there are other issues that we consider to be lower priority. Commercial buildings that flood, residential or commercial property alone that floods, in other words, not buildings, where we have minor street flooding or with minimal impact on traffic or emergency services. And again, where flooding was of such a magnitude, or the problem was just so big that we couldn't really get a handle on it. So again, those were what we considered. And again, the high priorities were essentially township infrastructure and where residential buildings flooded. That's what we felt was most important. So these are not in any particular order, but we recommended a property on Spring Road where private property is suffering severe damage. There's really bad stream erosion that is getting pretty close to the house, damaging sewer manhole. It was completely exposed back in Ida. And then out on the street, or we have a bridge, and John Neal knows the infrastructure better than me, but there's a lot of infrastructure and again, serious private property damage there. So we felt that was an important one. Another one is actually on the agenda this evening for action, because we do have a proposal, which is the Warren Avenue culvert, and we'll talk about that later. Ravine Road, here the stream runs along a good portion of the road. And again, John could describe it better than me, but it undercuts and undermines the road and is creating a structural problem with the street. We have a problem at the entrance to Down East Park, where there is damage done to the entrance and to the bridge, which prevents access to the park. The Hillbrook neighborhood, there's substantial flooding that takes place there, and at least one house takes on water. At least one house floods there. Barber Drive, this is an area that the board may be aware of, where there was a development upstream, the Schertz Farm development, that was contributing water. We believe that they are no longer contributing water because the storm basin has been converted into its final stage, I guess, for lack of a better term, and it should be managing the water properly now. But there are still a couple things we could do there to help prevent flooding of two houses that flooded on multiple occasions. And then 7 Elk Drive, there's a house and yard that flood. Again, this house does flood. There we have some options, but we'd have to talk to the property owner about them. So those are the high priority. Now that leaves, quite a number of other properties that do flood. One of those property owners is here this evening. He owns a commercial property at 383 Ton Road. And we have had a number of meetings with him. His name is Rick Scheib. He's in the back. And I believe you have an engineer who I thought represented Rick, but apparently doesn't, is also on the call. I'm not quite sure which property owner he represents, but anyway, so that's kind of my long introduction. So again, the action, if the board is ready to take any this evening, is to have Vero go ahead and prepare proposals for some or all of these that we recommend, or potentially different issues that the board may be aware of.
Steve, let me ask you the tough question now. What are the costs involved with this?
Well, the proposals, I used a rough number of $20,000 per proposal. Daryl and I talked about that. I don't know if Daryl can comment on that. I don't know if that's what the number will be. For example, the Warren Avenue culvert, which is on your agenda tonight, is actually more than that. And again, remember, these are proposals just to study the problem, not to do anything about it.
Scott, if I may, I really don't know what those engineering costs will be until, I kind of take a look at the projects and determine a scope of work. But Steve and I did, essentially start with $20,000 per location.
these locations known flood prone before Ida and were aggravated by Ida, or is these kind of Ida based?
It's a little bit of both. Some, of course, Ida aggravated everything, but a lot of these flooded before, excuse me, like 57 Spring flooded. Warren Avenue's had a problem. The property owner who's here, 383 ton, there's a lot of water that comes through a pipe underneath the railroad, and it's not just Ida storms. There's a number of problems out along Lancaster, excuse me, Lancaster Avenue. It's got to be a heavy storm. So I would say most of these are not just Ida problems.
How come the Pine Road site is not on the priority list? Special reason?
Well, just again, using, excuse me, the criteria that we thought was important, which was to focus on where residential buildings or township infrastructure took on water. Now, again, I don't know what the proposals are going to be from Daryl. We did budget, I believe the number was $120,000 to study stormwater problems. Just because it's not maybe on this, we'll say first cut, doesn't necessarily mean we can't look at it some other time. And Rick, excuse me, he can speak for himself, but we had a meeting where they suggested a partnership where we would study it. And I think one of the owners would provide the labor and another would provide the material. So there are two property owners that are involved.
They going forward with studying and perhaps free fund also throw it in.
I believe that's why we're here, is to provide these for residents and certainly as we're going forward.
John? Can't hear.
I can't hear. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think you might need to just unmute your Zoom mic to talk into.
John?
Yeah.
Okay. But it sounds like Peter and I are okay with the priority list and even adding free time to the study area.
I'm okay with that too, Rich.
Makes a motion, second, add on. Daryl, what's the time frame you think to complete the study for these areas?
Well, I mean, I'll get proposals in for your next meeting, and then after that, probably going to be several months at least to evaluate. Put together after I have the scope determined to evaluate each site. So it's going to be several months from April. So maybe mid or June, July, something like that.
And we'll start.
I'm sorry, Rich, if you can lead this because I can't hear you. I can hear.
Can you hear now?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's the feedback.
Right.
I'll take the feedback.
I asked Daryl. Daryl said it'd be a few months to gather the proposals and then define the study area. And then we would move forward from there.
All right,
Yes.
yeah, I'm certainly okay with that. I know this has been problematic throughout these bad storms. So I guess, I'll ask for a motion.
Motion to approve, to direct Arrow to prepare proposals for the study areas indicated on the priority list, adding 3 ton to it.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thanks, Daryl.
Thank you.
Okay. Now that I can hear you, Rich, I'm excited. This is great. Moving on, if Greg Lewis can kind of give us an overview about the community college testing for EMTs.
Either way, you want to come over here? Whichever works.
Good evening, everyone. I'll give you a brief overview of our fire department recruitment process. The recruitment process began in early January 2022. A department recruitment and hiring policy was developed that closely mirrored the police department's already approved policy. The current firefighter EMT job description was reviewed to ensure it met the current standards. Also in January 2022, a job post was created and posted to Indeed and various other social media links, including the township website, LinkedIn, and other various firefighting networks. We received a total of 30 applicants through Indeed. 19 of the candidates did not meet the minimum qualifications. The week of February 7th, 2022, Naveen, the HR manager, Steve Brown, the director of codes and life safety, and myself conducted virtual interviews with 10 candidates. After the interviews, three agreed that we should move 8 out of the 10 candidates forward into the testing phase. Through Bucks County Community College, we have a proposed test date of March 26, 2022. This will consist of a written firefighter test followed by a physical agility test. Candidates that achieve a score of 70% or higher on the written test will participate in the physical agility test. The written test will consist of 100 written questions that are all fire and emergency medical technician based, and the physical test will encompass numerous firefighting duties that we do daily. And that test date is proposed for March 26, 2022.
Okay. Sounds like a good program to help out. Peter, Rich, any questions?
That's fine.
Absolutely.
They have no
Okay.
questions.
Okay, no questions. Thank you, Donna. Then at this point, can I have a motion to accept the agility and writing testing for the firefighter and emergency medical technician candidates through Bucks County?
I'll make a motion. Can you hear me?
I have a second.
Can you hear me? Scott?
All in favor?
I'd like to make a motion to accept approve the agility and writing testing firefighter and emergency technician. From Bucks County Community College.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg.
I think it is now.
Next on our agenda here is the John Neild, if you can give us an overview on my favorite project of the year.
Yes, this is, we're asking for authorization to have Arrow begin the design, permitting, and plans, and also provide the bidding services for what we're calling the island beautification at Route 29 and Route 30. And that cost was $15,000. Now, in that proposal, we're going to go, we came up with some estimated costs last year, and the variable was the border. The interior with the plantings was pretty cut and dry, but the border varied between grass, mulch, concrete, pavers. So we're going to include all those options in the bid, and we're going to pick once we get real firm numbers on what we'd like to do there.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach at this point in time to get bids on all 3 or 4 of those options for the edging. If you get a timely response, I know I had hoped to have something in the ground by April, which is not going to happen, but what is your outside time frame on this?
Well, we'll get this, I'll get with Darrell tomorrow, and we'll get this process started. I would hope that we can get something back to you for approval to go to bid at the next meeting. And then that's a month process by the time we advertise and get bids back. So you're looking at the May meeting.
Okay.
We'll also need a PennDOT permit to do the work.
Right.
That'll only take, what, about a year?
Well,
it took me a year and a half to get through PennDOT to get to this point. I hope we still have the same people in place that agreed to it verbally. So,
in the conversations we had with them, they're open to it. They gave us some guidelines. So it seemed like they were more than willing to work with us. They gave us places to look at that other townships had done. So.
Right. Right. And now that we have a professional arborist on the board, he can really help the plant design on the program as well. So if Peter or Richard don't have any other questions, can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize Aaron to begin the design, permitting, and plans for the island beautification through 2930. I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Darrell.
Okay, the next item is another authorization for Arrow. It's the Warren Avenue culvert replacement. So this is going to be broken into 2 parts. The part we'd like to start now is to begin the design, the permitting, which is going to be a long process, the plans and the construction manual. So we're looking at $30,000 in 2022. And then there's also a number in there for bidding and construction services in 2023 for $10,000. Now this would be a complete replacement of the culvert that exists there now, and also replacement of some storm sewer that extends across the property at 333 Warren Avenue. We've had extensive problems there with flooding and driveway issues. So it would include a nice stretch there.
Yeah, this has been a long-standing problem. Peter, Rich, any questions?
Aye.
I'm okay for a motion.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Make a motion to authorize Aaron to begin design, plans, and construction manual for Warren Avenue culvert replacement project. Second.
And that amount would be for 30,000 for 2022 and 10,000 for 2023. I second that motion. All in favor? Aye. Passes.
Thank you.
So Daryl, you've got some work to do ahead, huh?
I do. Thank you very much.
Looking forward to it. Okay, Chris Yeager, can you give us a quick overview on our vehicle situation here?
Yeah, so previously we had approved the purchase of 2 Dodge Durango vehicles, which was the second attempt to buy 2 vehicles because the first 2 got canceled. So we went to the Durangos and ordered them in advance, assuming that they were saying at the time they wouldn't be here until at least April. And about a week and a half ago, we got a notification from Dodge telling us that the vehicles will not be available even in a 22 model. There'll be 23 models, and we can't even begin to order them until July with a 2023 delivery date. So based on that, we went shopping for some other kinds of vehicles, and we just happened to run into Whitmore car dealership. Has 2 Chevy Tahoe police vehicles. They're 2022. They're on the lot right now. They're police vehicles, and the price difference is slightly more. It's about $2,500 more for each vehicle, but they're available right now. And we have been flirting with buying the Tahoes anyway. So based on this price, the actual price was somewhere around $50,000, and with a CoStar's discount of $9,600, I believe it is, for each vehicle, we're going to save roughly $19,000, making a total purchase $84,000 for the 2 vehicles combined. And that does not include upfit, so we would have to put an upfit in for each of the vehicles for equipment, radios, and cameras for the onboard camera systems for each vehicle that goes in.
What's that a rough cost per vehicle?
It's very rough because it depends whether we're going to mark them, ghost mark them, or fully mark them. So the difference could be between $6,000 and $14,000, and then the cost of the cameras were because of replacement of the cameras were figuring roughly $10,000 to $15,000 a car. It won't be that cost, but that's what we try to calculate.
Is the upfit on the Tahoe the same as on an upfit on a Durango?
Roughly.
Yeah.
So because we don't have any Durangos that we're taking off, that we would decommission, we don't have any equipment already that would have been suitable for the Durango, and we don't have any for the Tahoe. So it's a same position for both of them. We're going to be having to buy all new equipment. Now, if you buy them again in 5 years, you might be able to use a lot of the equipment. Some of the things like cages and seats and some of the smart boxes for the siren and lights.
Okay. I guess you guys will be called this Tahoe folks. Okay, can we get a motion to approve?
Make a motion to revoke the purchase of 2 2022 Dodge Durangos and approve the purchase of 2 2020 Chevy Tahoe. Motion?
Second that. All in favor?
Thank you.
All right. Okay, moving on to item agenda 6, motion to advertise. Due to some scheduling conflicts, we're looking to reschedule the normal April 13th board meeting and move it to April 5th. Rich, Peter are available for that, so I guess we just need to have a motion to advertise it for the public's sake. If I could have a motion?
Make a motion to reschedule the April 13th regular board meeting, Tuesday, April 5th, 7 o'clock.
A second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Then I guess we've got a motion to advertise for the sale of a Ford Escape. Seems, can I have a motion on that?
Yeah, motion to go forward with the sale of 2012 Ford Escape for me.
I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next is a Park and Rec open space. Steve Bram, can you give us just a quick overview on this adoption process?
Yes, that's my plan. The short story is, the board considered this at their February meeting and asked that we make some further tweaks to the plan. Probably it's at least the second time, maybe the third time we've made revisions to it. And we revised the introduction to make it clear that the plan, the board and the township's not locked into any action. We simplified the committee structure as discussed that evening and eliminated the suggested shade tree commission. And I took a look at the land use chapter and also clarified that. So it was very clear that these were also suggestions and not a set of required actions. And then the final thing is, upon the advice of the solicitor, I compared the draft Park Rec and Open Space Plan with the 2015 Park and Rec Plan amendment. And while they're somewhat different, I would not say they're inconsistent. In fact, they're very similar. The current plan, the Park Rec and Open Space Plan, I would say has a much broader vision for open space and park improvements than the 2015 plan does. So that's the summary. Excuse me, that's the summary, and the requested action is that the board authorize that this plan move forward into the adoption and public hearing process and set May 11th, which is your regular meeting in May, as the public hearing date for the PROS plan.
Okay, thanks, Steve. I know we've talked about this quite a bit, unless there's been any new thoughts about it. Rich, Peter, if not, why don't we just make a motion to advertise?
No, we're fine. I'd like the additional comments were appropriate. I'll make a motion to authorize the public hearing and adoption process for the PROS plan.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Don, I haven't asked for a while, but have there been any public comments?
No, there has not. I've been
Okay.
watching.
And for this piece here, if you can, I'm still having a difficult time hearing Rich and Peter. So if you're able to move around with your computer as we
Sure.
talk about this next
Okay.
number two,
Okay.
I appreciate it so I can hear everybody.
Yeah. Okay. Give me 1 sec.
But
There's people. I'm taking it up there.
so moving on, Zach, if you can give us an overview here of what's going on with 7B.
You know. It's funny, I know, it's bad.
It'll feel much better on Saturday.
Are you able to hear me from my laptop? We might just need to mute some laptops.
I can hear you, Zach.
Try it again.
About now.
Mhm.
Scott, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. So I think if everyone is, we can kind of alternate muting sound versus microphones. So this evening, the school district's 5-6 center is on for consideration of a motion to authorize the solicitor to draft a resolution for final approval. With me here to my right is Chris Jensen. He's the civil engineer for the school district. And Chris, if you would like, you want to just give sort of a status update and overview of sort of where things stand with reviews, run through the waiver request, talk about some of the specific issues that you see as just needing a little discussion, and maybe an overview of where things stand from a traffic standpoint.
Absolutely. Thanks, Zach. So since we last appeared before this board, we have submitted final land development plans. We've received your consultant review letters for the plans, then subsequently appeared recently before the planning commission, whereby they recommended final plan approval, including a recommendation of all of the waivers that we are requesting for the plan. Subsequently, we did submit official response letters to the consultant review letters dated March 2nd. And happy to go over any of the responses or any of the comments in those consultant letters. Guy DiMartino is also here this evening from TPD to discuss traffic, road improvements, et cetera, should that be something you'd like to discuss. But perhaps at this point I could go through and if you'd like, I could go through the waivers, or we could talk about any of the plan elements that you'd like to speak about first.
Yeah, there's one issue that was raised several times by a neighbor, the confirmed starting time gap between the 5th, 6th center and KDM, so that there is not too much traffic.
Yeah, I don't want to speak out of turn. Mr. Chuck Peterson is here from the district, but I know that, you know, as part of the preliminary plan approval, the district intends and agrees to separate those bell schedules in terms of the operational elements that are basically required because of having 2 schools on the site and the needs for the separate drop off and pick up queuing. But in terms of setting a specific time frame between the 2 bells, we spoke at the planning commission meeting that is it imposes a difficult position upon the district, given that
That changes from year to year. There's logistical considerations because the school uses programs to come up with their bus routing. They have limited staff, limited bus drivers, and it really would change year to year. But again, as I mentioned, the intention is that these two schools will need to operate on separate bell schedules, which allow for the parents to come and drop off kids, the buses to come drop off, pick up kids at separate times, so that the property is utilized independently for each school.
And it's the same set of buses that first runs and picks up, I guess the early ones will be the 5th and 6th grade center, and then the buses go back and around and pick up the elementary school kids, right?
Yeah.
Is that how?
That's correct. Yes.
I have one question about the Church Road side in front of the historic school district building, the current administration building. Is that to be regraded during the construction?
The slope. The slope will be regraded because in front of the historic building, we are proposing a bus loop that also contains bus parking. And in order to do that, the asphalt has to extend out towards Church Road some, which changes the elevation of the embankment there. So it will need to be regraded, yes.
So that change in embankment is going to make it a much steeper slope?
It will be steeper. I don't know if it's going to be much steeper, but it will be steeper than it is.
I bring it up because one of the conditions is to push off the sidewalk to be built on Church Road, and there's some concern of a sidewalk going from Church Road to the building, and that sidewalk would be difficult to make ADA compliant. And my question is, because of that increased slope, is that why it'd be difficult to make that sidewalk from Church Road to the 5-6 building, the historic front, difficult to make it ADA compliant? Is that
actually is not the reason. It's the natural road grade of Church Road today versus the finished floor elevation of the historic building. Just that there are two set elevations with a set distance between those 2 points, and that precludes the ability to put an ADA compliant pathway from the sidewalk to the Church Road entry. I want to point out, though, that we have, since the last time we've been before you, submitted a plan that shows a sidewalk connection from Church Road to the sidewalks interior to the building. It would just require a set of stairs. And it's our interpretation that from a code perspective, that particular pathway would not require ADA compliance, because we would be providing a public access ADA compliant route from Swedesford Road to the main entrances of both the school buildings. So what we offered was to show that as an additional element of the sidewalk that we're requesting construction of to be deferred. So along with the deferment of that frontage sidewalk, we'd ask, and the district is asking as part of a waiver modification to recognize that we've added this additional connector sidewalk, but that be included in the deferred waiver for the frontage sidewalk.
I understand more clearly now. Thank you.
Yep.
Chris, I've got a question here. I'm concerned about the continued need to remove the 21 trees, mature trees, as the trail connection is likely to be moved onto another site. And these are 21, 14 to 18 foot caliber trees. And I'm hoping that you're able to make some accommodations for that, because I'm very, very concerned about this.
Yeah, I can comment on that. Sorry, my voice echoed here. So currently, as I think it was brought up earlier by your solicitor, the conditional use plan that is active and for which the hearing did start today, it is a separate application, and I understand that that is a real application, and it could, it could possibly move forward with land development, conditional use and land development being approved should the district, finalize the agreement on the land. However, this application, given we don't know that yet, still has the trail, the township trail, as well as what will still be required in any condition, which is an improvement to the swale that runs along that property line and an added stormwater basin. Both of which require the removal of those trees. And I should point out that along that line, and what's on the screen now here it shows, it's an exhibit we put together with an aerial that shows the 21 trees that we have had on the plan for some time to be removed. The proposed landscape plan that has also been put together for some time now proposes 37 additional trees along that line, quite a bit more than are to be removed. Now, it's acknowledged also that
but you're replacing them. You're replacing them with
check out the
1.5
landscape
caliber trees. You're replacing them with 1.5 caliber trees if you get your waiver. These are 14 to 21 foot caliber trees, mature trees.
The plan provides for removing the 21, but then replanting 37 along the same line?
What I can point out is on the landscape plan at the top of the screen now, this is the proposed landscape plan. And then again, this is what we've been proposing for some time, is that, as I mentioned, the trail itself, the stormwater elements, including the swale and the stormwater basin itself, all require that those existing trees be removed. However, as you can see, the dark symbols are new plantings, new tree plantings, of which along that line, that same line, from where you see the basin, the right-hand side of the basin, from the point that Zach is pointing out near the basin, if you make your way south to the right-hand side of the screen along the trail, there are 30, and stopping there, there are 37 new trees, evergreens, deciduous, various species. So the replacement is, and this is just an isolated snapshot of one area. When we do the replacement calcs, for which the district is complying, it's looking at the site as a whole. We are asking for a waiver for the caliber of replacement trees that are going to be placed on the opposite side of Sweetsburg. And that's really a separate request and a separate discussion point.
Mm-hmm.
But looking specifically at these trees, we are planning to plant more than what we are removing.
A question in regard to the trees to be removed, we'll say just above where the grading is to be, where the proposed path from the plan we have in front of us now. I understand the neighboring property and this property are two separate issues, and we've discussed that with conditional use. My question is, if it were to be approved, the conditional use, this is obviously hypothetical, and the path were to be moved away from, not in that path line anymore, would it be possible, if those trees are outside the grading lines, to preserve them? Outside of that, I understand the base is a very large grading job, but some of the, I've spent some time looking at this today, that perhaps like some of those evergreen trees could be preserved. It's a little tough to see on, this is the replacement trees, but.
So hypothetically, should the plan that was submitted for conditional use move forward, the desire of the district would be to open that area up for safe sight lines to the children, since they will now own the 7 acres adjacent to this, to the current parcel, and we would supplement the tree line farther east, which is farther to the top of the screen. So basically, we would shift what we're calling out as replacements here farther to the east to further buffer the neighbors to the east. But we want to open that up for safe sight lines to the children on the field. And frankly, the grading also in this area, we haven't taken a detailed look at it yet, but the one element of grading that we're conceptualizing would require that a certain amount of that area adjacent to the trees that we're talking about be filled up to make what would be somewhat of a level playing area for the kids, and that would actually necessitate in and of itself removal of those trees. So there are some moving parts in talking about the hypotheticals, but the district would, prioritizes the sight lines and clearly comply with the replacement requirements as well, and do something similar to enhance the buffering, but just shifting it farther to the east.
Chris, I got two questions. One is
If you were to
37.
move these trees further east through the conditional use process, is it the same 37, or have you even looked at it yet? It would be more than 37 along the, I guess it's the eastern boundary line to.
I took a quick look at that, and I think perhaps some of these trees near the basin that we would propose would stay, but these trees in this zone would shift for those sight lines. And there are trees, and I should point out, there are trees that, and we can see it on the aerial that we first brought up, on that adjacent 7-acre parcel. There's an additional row of evergreens that would need to come out as well. And that would be, I'm sure, what we discussed during the conditional use hearing. But that, there's basically a double row of evergreens. So in that area, the intention would be to open that up to allow for those sight lines, but then really do a nice job supplementing the trees, the tree line to the east, and adding the trees that are required to meet the ordinance.
Zach, could you
So just
do me a
to
favor?
clarify a little bit, as part of the land development, what's shown on the screen now, the bubbled area would be coming out.
Part of the land development, right?
But potentially as part of the conditional use,
Right.
some additional trees of the ones that are shown here as being retained would potentially need to come out in order to make the grading for the play field and some of the other improvements.
That's correct, Zach. So these trees on top of the blue line, which is the property line, these very likely would have to come out as well, because that, due to the grading of this area, which is the children's play field area, hypothetically going through that process, would require filling and then the opening of sight lines into this zone.
So likely not just these ones that are, say parallel to the area that's delineated on this current plan, but maybe even some additional beyond that same, along the same line of existing trees.
I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure. I understand.
Yeah, I could go with this. So this is what's shown for the land development.
Yes.
These are ones that would be retained as part of the land development,
Yes.
which maybe need to come out would likely need to come out for what your current
Likely,
plan
yes.
use is. would additional trees sort of beyond the end of this, like some of these in this area also need to be
Yes,
removed to make the grading work?
it would, from, these are evergreen trees up to this point, and there are some deciduous trees in here up to about this point here where we have conceptualized an extension of this walkway up through here to then have a garden area proposed here with the play area, kids playing field over here that comes to this zone. So there are about 20 trees on the 7-acre parcel that, from the standpoint of the engineering of the field and the district's needs for safety, would need to come down should the conditional use move forward.
And so I think this is just a picture that was taken in the field. I know it's probably a little hard to orient here. These are likely some of the ones, I believe, that are sort of out towards Swedesford Road.
Yes.
So this is probably like the further west of the line that will be coming down as part of the land development. But so in the future, potentially all of them would be coming out up to that point that we just delineated. Okay.
And they were planted, I mean, I can only suppose that based on their location that these were originally planted for screening, just like what would propose for the new trees that will become screening trees like this in the future.
They were put for screening for the house, and the house is going to be demolished.
Right,
right?
Correct.
They're very linear. I can't imagine that they were natural.
Zach, can you point out where these 37 trees, and by the way, if you notice that the level of the land is level. So I'm not sure what you're talking about, that the trees have to be coming out because of the leveling purposes. And just beyond these trees, you're going to be trying to build a swale. So all of a sudden you're concerned about the kids. You've got this big swale sitting right there beyond these trees. It doesn't make sense, Chris. But Zach, tell me where the 37 trees are supposed to be put.
I'll let Chris get to the specifics, but what I pulled up here is the grading plan just to kind of help demonstrate what's actually being proposed in terms of earth moving in this general location. So Chris, maybe you could kind of speak to the impact of the swale on the trees themselves.
So, and I don't know if the folks on the Zoom can see this plan, but we're looking at the grading plan right now, and a good portion of the trees that we're talking about removing, again, it's 21 trees that we're removing and we're replacing with 37, just to make the numbers clear for the land development. It's 21 removing and 37 in this area. A good portion of the 21 trees need to be removed because of the trail placement next to what we need to do to the existing swale that's out there today to improve it, because it doesn't function today the way it should. We needed to widen that swale. It's a relatively shallow swale, a wider swale, and it's not a safety issue for the kids. The swale, the way we have it designed, it's only approximately 2 feet deep over a width of about 50 feet. So it's a pretty benign gradual swale, but it can accept a lot more flow, the flow that it needs to be able to accept, than it does today. So that, in combination with the township's request to put a trail in, which we need to keep as close as possible to the property line to keep it away from the public trail, away from the kids, those two things, and the other stormwater elements, the basin and the collection, stormwater collection mechanisms, all together require that those 20 trees come out. Unfortunately, I mean, we try to design around it. There's also, we can't really pull the swale down any closer to the Katie Markley building. There's a fire apparatus access road that goes around the building. So there's constraints there, and that's what we need to do to improve the drainage, put the trail in, maintain the fire road, and it's really the site constraint that we have that causes this.
There's a fire.
Take a 2-inch caliper, partially plant a tree to get back up to 10 inches. 2 inches to 10 inches.
Gosh, I'm not qualified really to tell you that.
Theoretical, like, I mean, depends on conditions, drought, a lot of big issues.
It's 5 years. It's not 20 years. It can't be 20. Something more than 5.
An immature tree in ideal conditions can put on, 1/4 inch the growth for growing season. It's secondary growth.
1/4 inch a year?
It could be greater than that, depending on certain things. It's, nutrients, everything. How happy is that tree?
And Chris, to clarify just a little bit, the swale itself is existing, but it conveys this off-site flow from the Pico right away around the property into some existing pipes and across the street, right? So it's not as if the swale itself could be rerouted through the site. There's really not a way to reroute the trail either. I'm just kind of thinking of possible remedies, right, to balance the trees versus the trail and the swale.
Right, and that's correct. The swale itself is existing. It was built in conjunction with the construction of the Katie Markley Elementary School. It accepts off-site runoff and conveys that runoff around the school. It was not designed or constructed to accept the flow the way it should. It currently during a lot of storm events, overtops, and the off-site stormwater runs down into the play area of the school. That was a concern. That was something that was brought up early in the design process that we needed to remedy as part of this project. And that and the trail alignment are coincident and need to go in between where the Katie Markley School is located and the property line, which is really kind of a pinch point on the property. It just so happens that's where those trees are located as well.
And can you make the trail deeper and more narrow? Or not the trail, the drainage swell. Can you make that deeper and more narrow?
We can, but again, then we start to run into the situation that we really didn't want to with respect to children and playing and them being able to hide in there, and deeper and narrow creates a faster
what's the slope of the swell that you're proposing?
It has higher velocities that can become an issue as well, and we don't want that to, that could have the potential to actually be a safety issue as well for small children. So we're trying to spread the flow out, keep these swales shallow to the extent we possibly can. And
yeah, but your swale is exceptionally shallow and exceptionally wide. Most swales are not this shallow and this wide.
I disagree with that. But
what's your slope?
The longitudinal slope on the swale?
Yeah, the slope on the swale, what is it?
You're not gonna hear him.
I'm scaling by eye here, so It's about 5% coming down along the property line. It's much less than that along the Pico right of way, because we aren't able to make it steeper along the Pico. But as you make your way down along the line in question here, it looks to be about 5% with, one contour every 20 feet or so.
So if you make it 7 or 8%, which is a very reasonable slope for a swale, how much additional ground do you pick up to give you some room to move around there?
Oh, and Scott wants to say something. Go ahead, Scott.
No, go ahead. Keep talking, Joe, and then when you get done.
Make it at 7 or 8% would require extensive excavation as you make your way farther up gradient within the swale and make it a much deeper swale throughout. And it's just not a desirable design.
It may not be desirable because
at hand.
it's more expensive, but it certainly is a reasonable,
reasonable
slope.
I know there's trade-offs with everything here, but I think talking about a design that will, the intention for most schools is that they last, 50 years, and we want to have a design that stands the test of time. And, moving, unfortunately, the district is not against trees, but sometimes there is a requirement where we need to, unfortunately, decide that for the best interest of safety, for stormwater control and things like that, that's why the replacement ordinance, I believe, is intended to.
I think your swale can be reasonably. I think your swale can be reasonably redesigned. It'll cause additional expense for the school district, but I think it can be reasonably redesigned where you can save these trees.
Not only that, Joe, but, and Chris, I'll say this. If the trail were to be put where the existing trees are, the swale that you are going to be building to accommodate all of this is going to be built further east of where the trail would be or where the trees are. So by leaving the trees there and having the trail on another property, the swale can be, you're saying that the swale is going to be built further east.
I missed the beginning of the question, so I apologize. Are we referring back to what would happen should the conditional use move forward?
Yes. But
again, if the conditional use were to move forward, the trail would move onto the 7-acre parcel farther to the east, and we would open up the area for sight lines, and the requirements to grade the playing field would necessitate removal of the trees that we're already planning to remove as part of this land development, as well as additional trees on the adjacent property.
the grade is the same level where the trees are versus the middle of the property. Don't buy it. Don't buy it.
How many replacement trees are required now based on the number in excess of 20% that you're removing? Yeah, that number?
38.
38. So the waiver, really, the basis for the waiver is because those newly planted 38 trees, you want them to be 1 to 1.5 caliber versus 3 inches. That's the whole issue.
Well, the issue, I don't think we're specifically talking about the replacement waiver. I don't believe at this point that is the waiver request, that there be a allowance for reduction in the caliper of the tree that we are proposing to plant in an open area across north of Sweetsburg near the stormwater basin. I think the discussion now is about a particular zone on the plan related to certain tree removals and plantings that are just a portion of the overall count of removals versus proposed trees that create the ultimate requirement for the number of replacement trees. So we're talking about a subsection of the ultimate, design. Yeah.
Part of the issue.
Part of the issue. It's part of the issue. So it depends on how, you look at it, but yes, there's trees that are going to be removed, and overall, the number of trees removed necessitates replacement trees. So yeah, it's part of the issue.
And if the school district said, okay, we're gonna do, every replacement tree that's required, we're gonna make it 3 inches instead of 1 and 1.5. Does this whole thing go away?
The way the code section is set up is that the applicant is permitted to remove up to 20% of the existing 12-inch or greater diameter trees. So they're proposing to remove 67 total trees of 12 inches or greater, 21 of which are in this location we're referring to. So they get basically they get a credit. They can remove up to 20%. Anything beyond that, they have to replace 1-to-1 with a 3-inch caliber tree. So the request really is just they need board approval to remove more than 20%. So it's more than 20%. That's part of the request, and the diameter of the replacement tree.
No, it's not built into the ordinance that if you remove more than 20%, you can replace them with 3-inch. The first approval needs to be granted to even remove more than 20%.
Yeah, it says with board approval, you can remove more than the existing 20%. It's really focused on a wooded property, but I think it applies in this case as well.
So technically it does, yeah.
Chris, question for you, Daryl Becker. The 3 rectangular flat areas there, I guess they're play areas?
Yes.
Okay, and are they going to remain if you purchase the 7-acre parcel?
Yes, they will.
Okay, so there's no way that we could eliminate one or lengthen or shorten the larger east-west one to move that swale to the west?
No, the whole reason for the land purchase is to obtain more green space with the thought that and the needs for additional playing and athletic areas for the children.
Oh, yeah, they have. Oh, because it's you can just put 2 lights.
Going back to the swale in the conversation you were having with Joe McGorry, the swale is being relocated further east right now, assuming that those trees are being removed for a trail. So if you leave the trees exactly where they are and you go ahead with the engineering of the swale as designed here, the trees could remain. And you've got your swale further east.
Again, the trail does necessitate the tree removals as per this land development plan. Should the conditional use move forward, the trail would move to the east.
Okay, Chris, let's make an assumption that the trail is going to be moved
along the property line is desired and would be required due to grading of the field area and desired by the district to open the sight lines, that they be removed regardless.
So you can see kids and kids can see the school.
Correct.
So the kids can't hide behind it in between the trees and all
Correct.
that stuff, right?
The safety issue.
That's the reason the school district.
Correct.
They're opening up a wider campus, so they need sightlines. That's correct. Upon conditional use approval.
The trails can always be deferred until the adjacent property is available to be developed.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought it was the township that was requesting the trail.
Yeah, the trailers. Very good.
It is a nice connection from Route 30 down there, but it's that much of an impediment. You know, to get to Chester Valley Trail, you still have to come down Cross Street for, make a right and then make a left down Mill, and then you're at the trail. So it's not right at the trail, but it's more direct.
It would connect you directly from the trail through the property to the Pico power lines. And the long-term plan would be to connect that either along the Pico power lines if Pico would agree to it, which there's been some change in their policies, or across it to get to Route 30 through the west gate.
Okay, fine. Yeah. So there's an issue now with possibly not being able to run a connecting trail through the Pico right of way, because if that's the case, no reason for a trail.
I think what Pico has said is, and it was more of like a government affairs message to some of the local government entities, that they would like entities to start looking at other locations for trails, and that they couldn't guarantee that they could run trails all along the corridor. So I don't know that it's a hard no. Maybe crossing is one thing. I think the idea is, and they did specifically say trails. So I know there's been issues with structures in the past, with droopage of wires and things like that, and they had to remove things. But they did specifically say in this message that I am aware of that the trails were included. So
Pico's taking the position of not permitting trails any longer. It's a very recent position that they decided to do that. But there's exceptions to that. I represent another township where we were able to get them to agree to a trail despite their internal policy of not putting trails underneath utility lines. So there is a way around this, but you'd have to meet with Pico to make it happen.
Some of that, I believe, is for future lines sort of down the middle. This is just my layman's understanding and things I've heard on the topic, but there's 2 existing high tension lines. Long-term plans would be for a third. So it may be that something's staying out of, again, I can't speak with any authority on that, but that was kind of my understanding for long-term plans, to try to limit the amount of structures and other facilities that things are being stored in the right of way. But it may be that, hugging to the outside of it and running longitudinally down the right of way would be okay, or crossing over it, whereas crossing over it might not be. So I guess what it comes down to, at least in the context of what we're talking about right now, is trails versus tree. Do we feel that the trail has value, short or long term? It would connect to some of the surrounding neighborhoods, but connecting it long term elsewhere may be more cumbersome. It would certainly be a township project that would extend it. But.
Well, the trade-off, this is a balancing of interests.
It is,
kids, schools, trees. You're going to plant more trees. They're going to grow. They're not going to be there as big day one. They're not. It wouldn't happen. To save all trees. I'm not a tree expert, but trees were there now because of a screen against the house. The house is going to be demolished. Is it necessary to try to remove all 21? Is there a middle ground? Do you save a third of it? Do you save 7 of them spaced apart so you still have a nice line of trees?
Rich, I would agree with that assertion right there, to save some portion of the trees, to get my vote.
Well, I think certainly as we move forward, as conditional use has started, and I know the hearing is scheduled to continue. We've been asked to put together some additional exhibits. As we move forward, we can certainly look at, is there a potential to save some of these trees that would still allow for these, for the program of the district to move forward, given the reason for their purchase, which is for more athletic fields, and the grading that would be needed for that, and the safety that would be needed for that, and perhaps there is an opportunity to save some of those 20 trees that would still work within the confines of the operational needs of the district. It's possible.
Lower branches of the evergreens, the kids can't hide.
But again, that design work has not, that design work hasn't happened yet for the conditional use.
Whoever did.
Maybe taking the swale from 5% to 6% can save some of the trees.
The swale itself doesn't, the swale design really.
But it lets you move the trail.
If they're trails. Yes.
If you reduce the swale just 1 degree, you pick up room to move the trail, and I assume you can save some trees from that.
We again, it would not be an ideal swale design, and I don't think
6% versus 5%?
House, but looking at the design, I don't think we'd save substantial horizontal distance by slightly increasing the slope of that swale.
Chris, what are your interior side slopes of your swale?
Experience.
Chris, what are your interior side slopes of your swale? Can they be increased to reduce width?
Again, I'm looking at this by eye, so I believe they're 4 to 1 or so. They're not 3 to 1. I'm looking at the 3 to 1 contours going from the upper play area down to the lower play area. That gives you a good representative distance measurement, and you can see the swale side slope contours are a little bit wider, so I would guess it's 4 to 1.
So could we go 3 to 1, reduce the width by, what would that be, 4 feet? I don't know if that makes a difference or not, but might help.
Daryl, can I point out something?
That would be a 2-foot difference, and that really doesn't change the location of the trail versus the swale.
Well,
or
it'd be 2
the
feet
fact
on each.
that it would impact those exact symmetries.
Daryl, I don't know if it makes any impact on you, but right above it's where it says 366, that actually is a garden. That's a garden, and that garden is being moved according to the conditional use plan. It's being moved over to the 348 property.
Well,
So that allows even more land there.
I think that does make a difference, Scott. I thought that was a play area, but if that's garden is going to be moved, it seems to me that you could shift that swale then.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. The major pinch point that you see, well, again, what's on the screen here at least, is between the uppermost portion or the easternmost portion of the Katie Markley School and the inlet for the stormwater basin that is going to improve the stormwater conditions at the high quality watershed downstream. So that can't be moved, that portion of it. And that's a significant, I would say a majority actually, of the area we're talking about where these 20 evergreens are. The trees are, there's also a collection, there's a 364 contour that collects off-site flow from the 7-acre parcel and directs it into the swale that leads to our new stormwater facility.
Instead of trying to engineer this in the middle of a public meeting, I suggest that our engineer and the 10 school district's engineer get together and exhaust all possibilities of realignments of this swale.
I think that's a good point, Joe. I think that's what we should do.
They have a play area there. Saving any of the trees. Saving any of the trees. That's why. The branches are open, so you can see the whole. No, yeah, I get it. As a compromise, just trying to. I hope it's a deal. Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Who are you?
This is Gad Hazum. I was there earlier,
Okay, sure.
but now online. The picture that we're looking at on the screen and the trail itself, this is within the boundary of the existing school property, not on the new 7-acre parcel.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And that's the final plan for that trail to flow, to remain there.
Just a second. Go ahead.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Bernadette, to address that with respect to the conditional use.
Yes, and I understand that, we're trying not to get too much into the conditional use, but if this land development plan were approved and then the school district did purchase the other 7-acre property, it is likely that you would amend the land development plan to then move the trail onto the other property. So I wanted the resident to be aware of that.
That's correct. That's correct. The trail that we're discussing now in the context of the land development, the intention would be, should the conditional use move forward and the property purchased and land development be approved with an amended approval, we would shift this trail to the east, and it would run closer to the eastern property line of the 7-acre parcel.
Chris, whatever the individual in the room had talked about was not audible to the people on Zoom.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Whoever spoke
I can't hear anything,
in
to
the
be honest with
room,
you. All I hear is echo.
the person who spoke in the room a moment ago, you could not hear what they said on the Zoom.
That was Gada.
No,
I think.
it was
Bernadette.
It was late. I don't know who it was.
It was you, Bernadette. Try it now over there. Yeah, try it on that.
Can you hear me now, Scott? It's Bernadette.
Barely, but yeah, barely. Better than before.
I can't get it to stay on.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Can you hear me now, Scott?
Yeah, yes, I can.
But I have to keep unmuting. I have to keep muting it. I can't do it that way. I'll come over to you. I'll come over to you.
It's like a riddle every single time.
No, it's no joke.
I apologize, Scott. The resident who had been here. They're turning theirs off.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now, Scott?
Yes, I can.
Okay. The resident who had been here earlier in the room had gone for the conditional use, had gone home, and he had asked a question about where the trail was located on this plan. Was that the final location of the trail? I wanted Chris to make it clear that should the school district purchase the 7-acre parcel and they would come in for amended land development with the 7-acre parcel being part of this, part of this current land development and amending it, that trail would move closer to those residents. I didn't want him to be left with the thought that this is the final trail location, because it could change should the school district purchase the 7-acre parcel.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you for clarifying. Thank you.
Thanks, Bernadette.
I know we have some other issues, but while I have Donna standing here with the, with the laptop, one of the things I did want to bring up, and I believe Mr. Curran had been on the Zoom call, was, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Curran, there you are, was about the bell differential, and Andy Freemuth, the solicitor, I'm sorry, the attorney for the school district, had written an email that myself, Zach, I think the chief, and Chris had looked at, from McMahon, had looked at, basically stating, because we had discussed this, Mr. Curran had brought it up at the planning commission, that the bell schedule shall have a minimum separation of at least 30 minutes, although the district initially intends a minimum separation of at least 60 minutes. Vehicular trips and corresponding impacts on roadways resulting from the bell schedule may be reviewed by the district and township staff, including the township chief of police and the township traffic engineer from time to time, to ensure that the bell schedule does not have any unanticipated adverse impacts on surrounding roadways. The minimum separation of the bell schedule set forth herein may be decreased by the district, provided that such decrease does not negatively impact traffic conditions on surrounding roadways as determined by the district's traffic engineer and the township's traffic engineer in consultation with the township chief of police. That is something Mr. Freemuth had sent today, just because we thought this would be raised as an issue today, because it had come up at the planning commission. I don't know if the school district wanted to comment on that. It was just something we've received later this afternoon.
Only if there are any questions.
I just said I would comment only if there were any questions. We concur with the memo that Andy Freemuth sent to you.
Right now, you have the same buses pick up high and middle school together at elementary. Is that correct still?
Yes, right now, middle school, high school do the first run, and when those buses complete, then they go and pick up all the elementary students.
It's gotta be quite a gap between.
Right now, there's 70 minutes.
70 minutes, okay. So that's a good example.
Yeah. The problem is we're 2.5 years out. We just don't know what will happen in that amount of time. And there hasn't been any in-depth discussion with the board yet on how will we structure the transportation. So when we started this whole process, we had to say, okay, what do we envision it to look like? And what we envision right now is exactly what we already have, but we'll move the 5th graders on to that secondary bus run now. So it'll be 5 through 12 riding on the first run, because if you think about it, the high school, middle school picks up from the entire district. And then the elementaries are based on their homebound boundaries around that elementary school. So it would be very cost prohibitive to try to have a separate bus run just for the 5-6 center. So it looks like it's going to be, from a cost standpoint, from a CDL bus driver shortage standpoint, it looks like putting the 5-6 on with the 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 is going to be the best scenario, and it might be the only way we can possibly manage it. We would predict that there might be some people that say, parents, that we're really not nuts about having our 5th graders now on with 12th graders. So that debate will all start. I don't know that there's really a solution, but it's a very good chance that when we start 2.5 years from now, that we'll do exactly what we're saying, and there'll be a 60, 70-minute variance. So now what we're saying is, if there has to be some kind of contingency on a bell schedule, a compromise in our mind would be, say, it has to be a minimum of 30 minutes, but we'll continue all these talks like we've been have before. And it was detailed here that if we do want to change it in the future, we'll discuss that with all the authorities at B and make sure we're all on the same sheet of music, so to speak.
And you can say it's a minimum of 30 minutes, but buses are not going to get back and forth that quickly to keep it at 30 minutes. There's just no way.
No, but there could be buses added on. And again, at a cost would be a big price tag, but there could be buses put on. And there's so much debate now on
high school students be getting up that early in the morning that they don't learn as much? And should you flip that? The school board would like to have some flexibility to determine those bell schedules in the future based on what's best for all the kids in the entire district. Okay.
Do the best you can.
That's right. Thank you. While I'm up here, have the floor, so to speak, I just want to thank you for trying to help us. I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, but our schools are over capacity and growing rapidly. Our enrollment went up more this year than we expected it, and it's continuing. And it's just absolutely imperative that we open the doors of this school in the fall of 2024. And we need both summers to do that. If you think about it, when there's no kids in school, that's when we really can make hay. So we're supposed to go out to bid on April 5th and award contracts in May. So we've gone through this process for months and months and months. We've worked with the historical commission. We agreed to keep the original part of the building. We've done every traffic study and surveying and on and on. We need your help now to move this forward so that we can get the school built. So thank you very much.
Okay. If it's okay with Rich and Peter, I'd like to move to Joe's suggestion. I think we can work this out. I think we can both win on this situation, but I'd like to make a motion to move the this discussion to the point where we end up having engineers from both sides try to exhaust all possibilities with the least amount of tree disturbance and allow the swale to be put in there.
Can you hear me, Scott?
Yes.
I have to say I'm in dissent of that opinion. And I
Okay.
think I'm more apt to move to make a motion this evening, as I see this impasse not going anywhere and simply want to move forward.
You don't think we can try to get something resolved?
I think the language to the least minimum is too vague. I would even make it a little more vaguely precise and say to target to save no less than 5 of those trees. Target, not mandatory, target, and do the best you can.
I would agree with that.
They're big trees, so 5 trees pick up a lot of space. You can cut down those lower branches. Telling you.
If you could target 5 of those trees, I think I could probably back off my position. The only other point I would bring up is, do we want to have those caliper replacement trees at 3 inches and not put the waiver in on that?
I can find them. Do they have 3 inch? Is it a huge cost difference or?
There's a big cost difference.
Big cost difference?
I think the suggestion for the actual diameter of the trees was so that some of these, I guess it's not shown on the plan, but they would actually acclimate on the other side of the road more quickly and grow over time. The next 5 years, these 1 inch caliper trees may be bigger than what a 3 inch would be, just due to the shock of the tree being transplanted.
And if these are the ones being put on the other side of the road, you're really going to see them? I won't be playing baseball on that field.
But you'll be going down the trail.
Don't be on the trail.
So you'll see him to the right, to the left.
I can't turn my head anymore.
That's true. Forgive me, Rich.
Okay, so that, we'll go with the motion to endeavor to.
I think Mr. Curran did.
Oh.
We have a question.
Mr. Curran has.
Tom Curran, 51 Church Road. I have a request and I guess a comment and a question. Again, the language that I heard about differential between start times, I just don't get it. I mean, it seems to me that, and the school board has known this, that we've been talking, the neighbors have been talking about having a minimum differential for a while, that I don't understand why the school district can't commit to a minimum differential. None of us are saying 70 minutes.
Yeah. Mr. Curran, you may not have heard me, but they're agreeing to at least 30 minutes.
Okay, so they're going to a minimum of 30 minutes. Okay, so that's what's in there. All right, okay.
And then if that varies, they're going to talk to the traffic engineer. The two traffic engineers and the chief are going to talk.
Okay, 30 minutes is the minimum. Okay. And then I have just one question. In the school district application, they talk about 2 electronic monument signs, one on Church Road, one on Sweetser Road. If and when this is approved, does that mean they can build a humongous sign with electronic? How does that work? Is that a separate application for any electronic sign?
I think it would, that's a separate sign permit, right? Yeah, and there are limitations in the ordinance, I don't know what they are, again, but they probably have to go to zoning hearing board, don't they?
Okay,
Covenant Church had to go to zoning hearing board. They asked for something this big, they got something this big.
Okay, so the fact that it's in the existing plan does not mean an electronic monument sign is approved.
Correct.
All right.
We may also be able to apply we have some parameters that were developed by our lighting consultant. Ted can speak to this better than I can, but we may be able to apply some of those same criteria to the sign through lighting development. It basically just has to do with brightness and things like that. So the zoning ordinance does allow that type of sign. Some of the variances have been for like the size of the sign. Maybe we can fold some of those same parameters into the approval. Ted, do you have any thoughts on that? Okay.
Ted? Can't hear you.
On sign, currently, there's really nothing restricting a digital sign versus a static sign. I have created a digital sign agreement, which we use for Covenant Church, that limits hours, brightness, has background lightness, reading capabilities that automatically dim it, so changes in sign message, how often, those are all outlined in this digital agreement.
And is that digital agreement, run by the ordinance also?
No,
An agreement that is on top of the ordinance?
it's over and above the ordinance. Right.
We probably should amend our ordinance to include your provisions in that agreement, Ted.
That's one of the items we've been working on, yes.
There are size limitations and there will be an agreement that the school district will have limiting strength, right, timing.
Timing, brightness, yes.
Authorizing the solicitor to draft a resolution of agreement, the final plan development plan, subject to the new package. District engineer will endeavor to save 5 trees along the existing property line between ADM and the proposed condition of the property.
Sorry, Rich, I heard absolutely nothing what you said.
Rich says just a second, Scott.
Yell.
Can you hear me now? Well, it's.
Now I can. Yeah, now I can.
Now back. Lower to limit the echo.
Go ahead.
Um,
Hold on a minute, Rich. I think Zach wanted to interrupt you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't want to belabor this further. I just wanted to make sure the board is comfortable generally with where some of the items stand in the traffic review. There are some outside coordination items with PennDOT that are still to be resolved. The district is still in the process of reviewing and submitting documents to PennDOT relative to the site distance at Mill and Sweetsford. They believe that they're able to complete some of the road regrading, the embankments to create adequate site distance at Mill Lane. However, the one item that I think is a little more in flux at the moment is the signal at Church in Sweetsford. The applicant had predicated their traffic study on historical traffic counts prior to COVID, which showed higher volumes of traffic going through the intersections. They've recently, at the request of McMahon and PennDOT, prepared some more recent traffic counts that show that the signal at Church and Sweetsford may not be warranted. As part of the preliminary approval, we had a condition that said that the signal had to be installed, subject to PennDOT approval and all of that. Where it certainly current stands at the moment is we haven't had a PennDOT officially weigh in on whether the signal, it doesn't appear that it will be warranted. In the case that it's not warranted, they wouldn't be permitted to install a signal, even if we wanted them to. Instead, they would be required to pay the traffic impact fee that could fund this project in the future. The board may want to consider some sort of condition regarding monitoring of that intersection to allow us to keep a better eye on whether or not the signal is required, whether everything is functioning properly in and around the school. But I just wanted to make sure that the board was comfortable with sort of where things stand, since PennDOT is ultimately going to have purview over some of these items that we had discussed in previous reviews.
I did read the review letter. I'm currently comfortable with what was laid out in the condition, all the conditions, H and K. And, yeah.
Okay.
As currently written. As it was written in our. Right. Yeah. Right.
So if PennDOT doesn't ultimately require or even allow the signal, is the board comfortable with kind of deferring that to PennDOT? You don't. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. There is some additional coordination is the point. Not everything is entirely set in stone, is my point.
Scott, you were saying something?
Same as I've been saying, can't hear you. Rich and Peter, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
A little bit, Rich, on that one.
All right, so I made a summary motion to authorize the master solicitor to draft a resolution approving final land development with the additional condition that engineer, district engineer work together to endeavor to target to save 5 of the trees along the borderline between the current ADM site and the proposed conditional use site. Is that okay?
Is there any teeth that we can put into trying to save the 5? For example, the 5 to the front seem to make sense because the fields that they're talking about building are on the center back portion of 348. So that's the sight line I could see them talking about. Whereas the front sight line, that to me would be the most logical place to keep trees. But Is there any teeth, Joe, that we can put into what Rich was saying?
And the most visible. You commit to saving, to the extent possible, the 5 close to Sweetsford Road.
Yeah, I think that to the extent possible,
or realistic and well.
I'd like
The
to
extent
put teeth into
possible.
what he's saying, but I can't hear what he's saying.
sorry, we were muted here, and I think we're unmuted now. Yes, to the extent possible, I think that's reasonable for us to evaluate the trees closer to Sweetsford Road. Also, I don't know if there could be a statement added that should the conditional use of the property adjacent move forward, that it be considered that in lieu of 5 trees on the property that is party to this application be saved, that possibly 5 on the adjacent parcel be saved in lieu of, if that moves forward through conditional use.
Are they of the same size?
I just think there's more opportunity that could happen, and I think they are of similar size.
That's okay with me, Chris.
2 hours ago.
Okay.
I agree.
Angry things.
So, so I guess in terms of Rich's motion, do I have a second?
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's the longest aye vote that we've discussed so far in 4 years.
That's like a good compromise. That's why you have it. Everybody did, that's, you know, things can move, schools get built.
Okay,
Almost.
I need to get back into my agenda.
Wherever Ted, yeah.
Donnie, what are you saying?
I said, I think we're under Ted, right? Are we near Ted?
Number 8 on
Zoning,
the agenda.
number 8.
Yes.
Number 8.
Okay, if I can jump in and keep things moving here, I guess. Property maintenance wise, there's been several properties that have taken care of the issues and have been cleaned up and removed from the list. There are some that have been issued citations that are waiting for hearing dates. And I met with the contractor for Clues and Strawbridge with regard to the historic home, and they are going to be working on getting some of that secured to help preserve the home. And the bucket truck that was on the importer property has been removed. So quick summary of property maintenance tonight. Moving on, I have 2 zoning hearing board applications for this month. They are right next to each other, 9 and 10 Mallon Road. These are the properties that had been rezoned from industrial to residential revitalization and rezoned back to industrial with some limitations. 10 Mallon Road had been issued zoning variances back in 2011 for a lot of what they're asking for again. And they're including 9 Mallon Road. These properties are either narrow and encumbered by steep slopes and by easements. And I think that the relief requested is probably necessary for development of the 2 properties.
Were those variances that far back in 2011? Did you just see one of these within the past 6 months? Huh?
No, that was the rezoning and No. So unless the board has any issues, or, okay, I'm sure they can. Thank you.
You done?
I'm done.
Okay, good, that was quick.
Consent.
Okay.
Consent
Scott?
agenda.
Okay, do we need to, Joe or Bernadette, do we need to go back to 7B, section 2? Do we have to make a comment to read
There's nobody else.
the data pods deferral until next meeting?
Isn't that tabled?
That,
Oh, that was tabled, I believe, correct? Didn't you send a
Yes.
message?
They requested to be removed from the agenda. So we'll just try to get them some feedback on what they submitted before the next meeting.
okay.
So they've requested it's actually a good question. I'm curious, Bernadette or Joe's perspective on this. They did not submit a land development application. They've requested only a letter requesting a waiver of land development. So my understanding has been that there is no MPC mandated shot clock.
Right over there.
Okay.
Okay, I think there's
We're
no
into
public.
public comment?
There is none.
Okay.
Thank you.
I guess at this point, I will read again the consent agenda. Stop me if you have any specific questions. Approve the meeting minutes from February 9, 2022. Ratify the payment of bills in the amount of $627,719.61 for January of 2022. Accept the treasurer report as of January 31st, 2020. Approve a quote from L3 Harris for portable radios, 6 of them for life safety, in the amount of $20,416. Any questions on that one? Approve the grant contract extension from Chester County for Spring Ridge and Balderson properties. Approve the final invoice from BSTI for Bishop Tube due to the extensive comments to PA Department DEP. And that amount is $23,768. $62,000 has been spent, $50,000 was attributable to a grant reimbursement. Reaffirm the 2022 budget for summer camps in the amount of $35,000, which will provide for 5 shows this year. Approve reimbursement expenses of John or Steve. That amount is X'd out for Hurricane Ida for Federal Disaster Assistance Program. Steve Brown?
Undefined amount?
Yeah, we're still working on that. John Neild and primarily John Neild's working on that with Lauren Nafsinger. We need to submit some forms to, I can't remember if it's FEMA or PEMA. It's one of them. So that's also associated with this item.
So should we disregard, remove this from the consent?
No, these forms are the first step in the process of securing the grant application to FEMA through FEMA. These are required forms to go to FEMA so that we can start the contract process to move forward with the, we can't do anything unless these forms are signed by resolution.
Can we put a not to exceed number, like $100,000?
No.
No, this is not a cost. This is money coming back to us. This is a grant application. We don't know what that dollar amount is going to be, because we have to wait to see what all gets approved.
Okay, then let
We
me.
need these documents to move forward.
All right, let me read it a different way. Approve the reimbursement of expenses for the Hurricane Ida Federal Disaster Assistance Program grant to be received by the township. Discussed request from the Park and Rec Board for additional scholarships for 2022, the summer camp, to increase the amount from $500 to $2,000. I don't see that as being an issue, and I would let the Park and Rec Board decide how they want to split that money up. And approve exoneration of uncollectible real estate, property taxes / mobile homes removed. Inactivated or annexed to another parcel. The amount is $64.04 pertaining to 3 properties for the tax years 2017 through 2020. Is that any specific questions on any of those items? Can I hear a motion to accept?
Motion to accept consent agenda as read.
Finally, I can hear you, Rich. Do I have a second?
He just turned his microphone on. He just did.
And all in favor? Aye. Any other business to be discussed?
No, there is no other business.
None. Then
No
the
more.
meeting is adjourned.
Before you adjourn,
Oh, wait.
Scott.
Oh, wait.
Wait a minute. I'll get Joe here.
Yeah, before you adjourn, I just wanted to express my gratitude for having the opportunity to work with you for the last 6 years. And we worked our way through some very challenging issues, and I enjoyed the process. And I want to give a shout out to Sue Drummond, who I think has an outstanding mind when it comes to land development issues, and also to your staff, which is very competent, and they work very well together.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you.